I never thought a simple photo would turn my life upside down, but that's exactly what happened last Tuesday. There I was, standing next to Mr. Peterson, our company director, both of us smiling as he shook my hand. The caption read, "Finally got that promotion. Hard work pays off. Career milestone." I didn't think much about posting it, just another career update on social media. How wrong I was. My name is Audrey, and at 25, I'd finally gotten my first big break at Marshall & Associates, moving up from entry-level manager to department head. It wasn't an easy journey, 3 years of overtime, countless presentations, and more coffee than I care to admit. But I did it on my own, and that meant everything to me. I was still riding the high of my promotion when my phone buzzed. The number wasn't saved in my contacts, but I recognized it instantly. My mother. 7 years of silence, and now, out of the blue, she was calling me. My hand trembled as I stared at the screen. "Hello?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. "Audrey, sweetheart." My mother's voice was exactly as I remembered it, that sickly sweet tone she used when she wanted something. "Your father and I just saw your post. We're so proud of you." Proud. The word hit me like a slap. Where was that pride when I needed it most? "Thanks," I managed to say, gripping my desk to steady myself. "We should celebrate. Why don't you come over this weekend? We can discuss throwing a proper party for you. The whole family would love to see how successful you've become." The whole family. Including Sarah, my younger sister. The golden child, the favorite. The one who could do no wrong. "I'll think about it," I said, my throat tight. "Please do, darling. We've missed you so much. It's time to put the past behind us, don't you think?" After we hung up, I sat at my desk, staring at nothing. 7 years of silence, broken because of a social media post. 7 years since I'd walked out of that house, vowing never to return. 7 years of building a life without them. My hand brushed against the medical alert bracelet on my wrist, the one that warned about my peanut allergy. The same allergy that my parents had treated as an inconvenience, and Sarah had used as ammunition for her cruel jokes. My grandmother's words echoed in my mind, "Family is who treats you like family, not just who shares your blood." She'd been my real parent these past 7 years, supporting me through college, believing in me when no one else did. The words, "We're proud of you," kept echoing in my head. Funny how those words could feel so hollow coming from one person and so genuine from another. I looked at the photo on my desk, me and Grandma at my college graduation. She was beaming with real pride that day, not the manufactured kind my parents were suddenly showing. The phone call from Mom had ripped open old wounds, and now the past came rushing back like a flood. Sarah was 3 years younger than me, but from the moment she was born, she became the center of our family's universe. While I got practical clothes from discount stores, Sarah had designer outfits. My parents would document her every move with expensive cameras, while my school achievements gathered dust in drawers. I remember my 10th birthday clearly. I'd been hoping for the art set I'd been eyeing for months, nothing fancy, just a basic kit with colored pencils and a sketchbook. Instead, I got a pack of number 2 pencils, because they're what you need for school anyway. That same year, for Sarah's 7th birthday, our parents transformed the entire backyard into a Disney Princess Wonderland, complete with a hired Cinderella. "Sarah's just more artistic," Mom would say when relatives questioned the disparity. "She needs proper tools to develop her talent. You have to understand," my Aunt Jessica once said to my parents during a family dinner, "children should be loved equally." This isn't right. I can still see Mom's dismissive wave. "Oh, Jessica, you don't have children. You don't understand. Our girls are just different. Sarah has real potential." The worst part wasn't even the material things, it was the constant emotional undermining. Like the time I won first place in the state math competition. Instead of "Congratulations," Mom said, "That's nice, dear, but did you see Sarah's painting got displayed in the school hallway?" My grandmother saw through it all. "This isn't right, Margaret," she'd tell my mother. You're raising one child to be entitled and the other to feel worthless. Mom, please, my mother would respond with an eye roll. Sarah is gifted. Audrey is ordinary. We're just being realistic about their capabilities. Sarah learned quickly how to exploit her position. She'd break something and blame me, knowing our parents would believe her without question. She'd accidentally spill juice on my homework, then cry when I got upset, making me look like the bad guy. Once, she even told her friends they couldn't play with me because I was the boring sister. The day I got accepted into the advanced mathematics program at school, Sarah had a minor role in a school play. Guess which event my parents attended? I sat alone in the math classroom during the awards ceremony, watching other parents beam with pride at their children. My certificate was signed by my teacher and the principal, but my parents never even saw it. Your sister needs us more, Dad would say whenever I tried to express my feelings. She has real talents to nurture. You're more independent. Independent wasn't a compliment, it was their way of justifying their negligence. Even our relatives could see it. During family gatherings, conversations would halt when Sarah would dramatically demand attention or deliberately exclude me from activities. The adults would exchange uncomfortable glances, but my parents remained oblivious, or perhaps willfully blind. Life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. Mine came in the form of a peanut butter sandwich at Grandma's house when I was 12. I'd eaten peanut butter countless times before, it was actually one of my favorite foods. But that day was different. Want a sandwich, sweetheart? Grandma had asked, making her famous peanut butter and honey combination. I nodded eagerly, watching her spread the creamy peanut butter across the bread. 3 bites in, something felt wrong. My throat started to tighten, and breathing became increasingly difficult. I remember dropping the sandwich, my hands clutching at my throat. What happened next is still a blur in my memory. Grandma's quick thinking saved my life. She immediately recognized the signs of anaphylaxis and called 911. I remember her holding my hand in the ambulance, her voice steady but scared. Stay with me, sweetheart. Just keep breathing. My parents arrived at the hospital about an hour later, clearly annoyed at having to leave work. Mom was tapping her foot impatiently while the doctor explained about severe peanut allergies and how they can develop suddenly, even if you've never had problems before. She'll need to carry an EpiPen at all times, the doctor emphasized. And you'll need to be very careful about checking ingredients in everything she eats. Cross-contamination can be dangerous too. Dad nodded absently, checking his watch. Mom was already on her phone, probably texting Sarah's dance instructor about being late for pickup. The ride home was worse than the hospital. They waited until we were in the car, before letting their true feelings show. This is just perfect, Mom muttered. As if we don't have enough to deal with. First the math tutoring, now this, Dad added. Everything with you has to be complicated, doesn't it, Audrey? I pressed myself against the car door, trying to make myself as small as possible. My throat was still sore from the reaction, but their words hurt more than any physical pain. The years that followed were a careful dance of reading labels and carrying EpiPens. Grandma made sure I had proper medical alert bracelets and helped me learn how to advocate for myself. She even called the school to make sure they understood the severity of my condition. Sarah, of course, found endless amusement in my new medical condition. She'd wave peanut butter sandwiches in my face, laughing when I flinched away. Oh, sorry, she'd say with fake innocence. I forgot you're allergic to everything now. At family gatherings, she'd loudly announce, be careful everyone, Audrey might die if she eats the wrong thing, making me feel like even more of an outsider. My parents never corrected her behavior, if anything, they seemed annoyed by my need for caution. I learned to pack my own meals, check every label 3 times, and never trust food I hadn't personally verified. It was exhausting, but it became my normal. My high school graduation should have been a moment of triumph. Full scholarship to Northwestern State University, I'd done it entirely on my own, maintaining straight A's while juggling part-time jobs and my constant vigilance about food allergies. The acceptance letter felt like validation for all those nights I'd spent studying while Sarah's music blasted through the walls from her bedroom. The family dinner where I announced my college acceptance is forever etched in my memory. "I got into Northwestern," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Full academic scholarship." "That's nice, dear," Mom said, barely looking up from her plate. "The thing is," I continued, gripping my fork tightly, "I'll need help with housing. The scholarship covers tuition, but not accommodation. I've looked into the costs, Anne." "No," Dad's response was immediate and flat. "You chose to apply to a college in another state. That was your decision. We're saving for Sarah's education. She's planning to attend Juilliard in 2 years, and that's not cheap." I stared at my plate, fighting back tears. Sarah smirked from across the table, twirling her pasta with deliberate slowness. "But it's just the housing cost," I tried again. "The scholarship covers everything else." "Audrey," Mom's voice was sharp. "We've made our decision. If you want to go to college out of state, you'll have to figure out the housing situation yourself." That's when the front door opened, and Grandma walked in, holding a congratulations balloon and a small gift bag. Her smile faded as she took in the scene, my red eyes, Sarah's smug expression, our parents' cold faces. "What's going on?" she asked, looking around the table. Sarah giggled, always eager to twist the knife. "Oh, Audrey got into college, but she'll be living on the street because Mom and Dad won't pay for her housing. They're saving their money for my Juilliard education instead." The silence that followed was deafening. "Is this true?" Grandma's voice was quiet but sharp. When no one answered, she continued, "Margaret, Richard, how dare you? Your daughter earned a full scholarship, and you won't even help her with housing?" "Mom, please," my mother sighed. "Sarah's education." "Sarah's education?" Grandma's voice rose. "What about Audrey's education? What about supporting both your children? And you," she turned to Sarah, who was still wearing that satisfied smirk, "you're becoming a cruel, spoiled child. I'm ashamed of how you're behaving." Sarah's face crumpled, and she burst into tears, her usual tactic when things didn't go her way. Mom and Dad immediately rushed to comfort her, shooting angry glares at Grandma and me. "This is exactly what we mean," Mom snapped. "Audrey and you, Mom, you're always causing problems. Always making everything difficult." Something inside me snapped. Without a word, I stood up and walked out of the dining room. I climbed the stairs to my bedroom, pulled out my old duffel bag, and started throwing in clothes. Grandma appeared in the doorway a few minutes later. "Pack everything you need, sweetheart. You're coming home with me." "But college," I started. "Will be taken care of," she said firmly. "I'll pay for your housing. You focus on your studies and building your future." 20 minutes later, we walked out of that house together, leaving behind my parents' angry voices and Sarah's theatrical sobs. In that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: hope. College life was everything I'd hoped for and more. My tiny apartment near campus became my sanctuary, a place where I could finally breathe freely without walking on eggshells. Grandma visited often. She never missed a birthday, a holiday, or any milestone in my life. My parents and Sarah, on the other hand, became ghosts. No calls on Christmas, no cards on my birthday, not even a text message during graduation. 7 years of complete silence. So when I found myself standing on their doorstep after that phone call about my promotion, it felt surreal. The house hadn't changed, same cream-colored walls, same manicured lawn, same brass knocker that I used to have to stretch to reach. Mom opened the door with an enthusiastic "Audrey" that seemed rehearsed. She pulled me into a hug that felt foreign and stiff. The living room was exactly as I remembered it, still dominated by Sarah's achievements. Her Juilliard degree held the place of honor above the fireplace. She sat in Dad's old armchair, scrolling through her phone, barely acknowledging my presence except to roll her eyes when Mom gushed about my promotion. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart," Mom kept saying, the words sounding hollow after 7 years of silence. Aren't we, Richard? Dad nodded from his spot on the couch. Very proud. Making your way up in a big company like that. We should celebrate properly, Mom continued, her voice taking on that familiar planning tone I remembered from all of Sarah's parties. A big family gathering, right here at home. Everyone would love to see you, Aunt Jessica, all your cousins. Grandmother too? I asked pointedly. Of course, Mom said quickly, though I caught her slight grimace. We want to make things right, Audrey. It's been too long. Let's say, 2 weeks from now? Give everyone time to make arrangements? I found myself nodding, though every instinct screamed this was wrong. Sure, that sounds nice. The 2 weeks leading up to the party were strange. Work kept me busy with my new responsibilities, but my phone buzzed constantly with messages from my suddenly attentive family. Mom sent daily texts about party preparations. Sarah, who hadn't acknowledged my existence for 7 years, suddenly sent me a friend request on social media with a message that read, "Time to put the past behind us, sis." Grandma was ecstatic about the reconciliation. This is all I've ever wanted, she told me over our weekly dinner. For my family to be whole again. The day of the party arrived warm and sunny. I pulled up to my parents' house to find cars already lining the street. Inside, the house buzzed with activity. Aunt Jessica's daughter, Emma, darted around with her phone, recording everything like a tiny documentary filmmaker. The smell of catering filled the air, all nut-free, I noticed with surprise. Audrey, Grandma enveloped me in a warm hug. You look beautiful, sweetheart. Aunt Jessica hugged me next. So proud of you, kiddo. Department head at your age, that's incredible. Sarah stood by the stairs in a designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent, greeting guests with her practiced pageant smile. Our parents fluttered around, playing the perfect hosts, as if the last 7 years had never happened. When everyone was seated at the elaborately decorated dining table, Mom clinked her glass for attention. We're so happy to have everyone here today, she began, smiling broadly. As you know, we're celebrating Audrey's promotion. She paused for polite applause. It's wonderful to see her finally finding her footing in the corporate world. I should have known the word finally was a warning sign. And speaking of success, Mom continued, her voice brightening, I'd like to take a moment to talk about our Sarah. Many of you know she graduated from Juilliard with honors last year. She's such a talented artist, truly gifted. The next 5 minutes were a detailed recap of Sarah's achievements, ending with, and now that Audrey has this wonderful position and the ear of management, we're hoping she'll help her incredibly qualified sister join this prestigious company. The table fell silent. I could feel Grandma's eyes on me, see Aunt Jessica's uncomfortable shift in her chair. Emma kept her phone trained on the scene, capturing every excruciating moment. Actually, I said, my voice surprisingly steady, I'm not in a position to hire anyone. I'm a department head, not a director. I don't make hiring decisions. Mom's smile tightened. But surely with your new influence. Excuse me, I cut her off, standing up. Mom, Dad, can we talk privately? They followed me into the kitchen, their practiced smiles dropping as soon as we were alone. I thought this was supposed to be a celebration of my promotion, I said quietly. Not a networking event for Sarah. Don't be selfish, Audrey, Mom snapped. Sarah needs this opportunity. Family helps family. Selfish? I repeated in disbelief. After 7 years of no contact, you reach out only because you want something from me, and I'm the selfish one? Dad's face hardened. We've given Sarah every advantage, invested everything in her future. The least you could do is help your sister now that you're in a position to do so. We returned to the dining room, the tension following us like a storm cloud. I sat down, trying to ignore the concerned glances from Grandma and Aunt Jessica. The catering staff had served the main course while we were gone, some kind of elegant chicken dish with a creamy sauce. I took a few bites, my mind still churning from the conversation in the kitchen. The sauce had an interesting flavor, nutty, almost. My throat suddenly felt tight. A familiar panic gripped me as I realized what was happening. Peanuts, I managed to gasp, my hand already fumbling for my purse and the EpiPen inside. There's peanuts. The room began to spin. I could hear chairs scraping, voices raising in alarm. Grandma's voice cut through the chaos, "Someone call 911." Everything after that became a blur of sounds and shadows. The last thing I remember was the feeling of my throat closing and Grandma's hands gripping mine. I woke up to the steady beep of hospital monitors. My throat felt raw, my body heavy. Grandma sat beside my bed, her face drawn with worry and exhaustion. "Oh, thank God," she whispered when she saw my eyes open. "We almost lost you, sweetheart. The doctors said it was one of the worst anaphylactic reactions they've seen." I tried to speak, but my throat was too sore. "Don't try to talk yet," Grandma said, squeezing my hand. "You've been out for several hours. The EpiPen and the paramedics barely got to you in time." I managed to rasp out, "How? The food, they knew." Before Grandma could answer, Aunt Jessica burst into the room with Emma close behind. Emma clutched her phone, her young face uncharacteristically serious. "Audrey," Aunt Jessica's voice shook with anger. "There's something you need to see." "Emma, show her." Emma stepped forward, her hands trembling as she held out her phone. "I was recording everything at the party," she said quietly. "I got this when you were in the kitchen with your parents." The video showed the dining room from an angle near the dessert table. I could see myself leaving for the kitchen with my parents. Then, clear as day, Sarah stood up and walked to my place setting. She reached into her designer purse, pulled out a small jar, and quickly stirred something into my food. The smirk on her face was unmistakable. "That's peanut butter," Aunt Jessica said, her voice hard. "Your sister deliberately put peanut butter in your food, knowing full well about your allergy." I stared at the phone screen, watching the scene play out again. Sarah, my own sister, had tried to. "She could have killed you," Grandma's voice broke. She knew exactly what she was doing. The four of us sat in stunned silence, watching the damning evidence again and again. The casual way she'd done it, the slight smile on her face as she stirred the peanut butter into my food, it was calculated, deliberate. I left the hospital against medical advice, driven by a mix of rage and disbelief. The video on Emma's phone felt heavy in my pocket, she'd sent it to me before I left. When I pulled up to my parents' house, my hands were shaking on the steering wheel. They were all in the living room, Mom, Dad, and Sarah. Acting as if nothing had happened, as if I hadn't nearly died at their dinner table hours earlier. "What are you doing here?" Sarah asked, barely looking up from her phone. "Shouldn't you be in the hospital, being dramatic?" "I know what you did," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. "I know you put peanut butter in my food." Sarah's head snapped up, her face a mask of outrage. Mom jumped to her feet. "How dare you accuse your sister," she spat. "Haven't you caused enough problems?" I pulled out my phone, pulled up the video, and pressed play. The room fell silent except for the damning evidence playing on the screen, Sarah, methodically stirring peanut butter into my food, that self-satisfied smirk on her face. The color drained from Sarah's face. Then, incredibly, she laughed. "Oh come on, it was just a prank. You're always so serious about everything." "A prank?" My voice shook. "I could have died. Do you understand that? The doctors said I barely made it." "Oh, please," Mom waved her hand dismissively. "You're being melodramatic. Sarah was just having a bit of fun." "Fun?" I stared at them in disbelief. I had anaphylactic shock. My heart nearly stopped. "Listen carefully," Dad's voice turned cold. "If you even think about taking this to the police, you're no longer our daughter. We'll disinherit you completely." In that moment, everything became crystal clear. These people weren't my family. They never had been. I walked out without another word, got in my car, and drove home. My hands were steady now. I knew exactly what I needed to do. Sitting at my computer, I uploaded the video to my social media. Below it, I wrote, "Today I learned what family truly means. And these people are not it. My own sister deliberately poisoned me with peanuts, knowing about my severe allergy. My parents called it a prank. This is the last time I will ever call them family." The response was immediate and explosive. Relatives I hadn't heard from in years commented in shock and outrage. Aunt Jessica shared the video, adding her own scathing commentary. Friends and colleagues expressed horror and support. My parents and Sarah fought back in the comments, calling me an attention seeker, claiming it was all a misunderstanding. But the video spoke for itself. The next morning, I walked into the police station and filed a formal report. That afternoon, my parents' lawyer delivered a formal document. They were officially disowning me and removing me from their will. Sarah posted a tearful video about how I was destroying the family with my lies. But I wasn't alone. Grandma called me that evening. "I've spoken to my lawyer," she said firmly. "I'm cutting them off completely. You're my only heir now, Audrey. You've always been more my daughter than Margaret's anyway." I sat on my couch that night, reading the flood of messages, support from real family members, from friends, from colleagues. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma, "You're still my favorite cousin. Mom says you can come over for dinner anytime." 7 years ago, I'd walked away from a toxic family. This time, I was running toward a real one. Sometimes the family you're born into isn't the family you're meant to have. Sometimes you have to build your own.